you grew up watching it on TV, yet you're such a good storyteller with basically static images. So how do you feel like that you kind of moved into being able to do that so well?
I could always draw. I come from an artistic family, so the sort of the anatomy and such, you know, sort of having my brain sort of being molded into thinking visually and developing a visual catalogue, a library of my brain, what you call it. That was early for me, you know, because my mum would sort of set me perspective exercises, you know, teach me about that, you know, years before anyone was teaching us that at school. The storytelling, I think, comes from, I trained in theatre. That was my big thing. You know, when I was 13, I decided I wanted to be an actor. And I went to performing arts high school, and then I went to a theatre school after high school. And, you know, I was in the theatre world for a really long time, and I did some film and TV in Australia. And that sort of, for me, particularly when I'm sort of, because I've been working on teen books for 8 years straight now at DC, that theatre training has taught me how to block a scene with all the characters. You know, when you're on stage and you're getting to that point where you're off book, you're off your script, and you're starting to block out how everything will be displayed to the audience. You thought it, you know, you're sort of in your proscenium space, your archway, and that will be your audience, like we're up here now.
That's pretty interesting because I relate to that because when I was in high school, I was pretty active in doing theater and stuff.
Right.
And I find that when I'm blocking a scene out, sometimes I'll walk through it. I'll get up and especially if it's a character scene or it's not an action scene, I'll actually walk through the scene and act out the parts like in my office.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
I want to find sort of different ways to emotionally deliver the scene. There was one scene that I did in, I think it was my first issue of Teen Titans, and it's kind of Wonder Girl and Superboy breaking up. And by the time I got onto the book, Wonder Girl had sort of developed a reputation with the fans as being a bit of a whiny bitch. And, you know, she'd been a bad team leader, and people were not liking her anymore. And I was like, I really like this girl, and I just think she's been given a hard time. You know, she's having a tough time with, you know, assuming the role of a leader while Tim's been away. But I don't want her to come across as whiny. And this breakup could have been really easily interpreted by an artist as an argument, and she could have very easily been drawn with, you know, angry, screamy face and look like she's emotionally, angry at Connor, and he would look sad, and she would come across as an awful teenage brat, and he would come across as sympathetic. And I just thought that's not fair. I want her to be sympathetic as well, because the nature of their breakup was actually really gentle, and they were both sort of mutually understanding of each other's situation. And so I said to the writer and the editor, look, I want to draw this really toned down. They're, you know, holding hands, and they're sitting on the bed, and they're both sort of on the verge of tears. Is that all right with you? And they were like, yeah, that's great. And that comes from sort of sitting there with the script and acting out the parts, because I thought it was going to be shouting. And as I was shouting it, I just thought, oh, this sounds awful. But as soon as I sort of made it quiet and contemplative, and they're looking into each other's eyes, it was like, oh, now I feel something.
As soon as you live through it a little bit.
Yeah, and it sort of really makes a difference to sort of have that as my storytelling background. And yeah.
So Aaron, you seem a little surprised by that kind of process. What's different for you about that?
you know, we look at it in two ways of storytelling: the how the emotion is expressed, but also being that it's a two-dimensional form that we're putting this image onto. I also think of it in a design sense.
Yeah, and I get that from your stuff. I get a real sense of power from your design sense.
Yeah, juxtaposition of body size, weight, stuff like that. You can in my mind, like, you can have a story told with the same emotional power a million different ways.
Yeah.
But because we're in a two-dimensional format, it's like, to me, the crux is in the design to amplify the story.
What do you think it is about comics that kind of like that kind of makes comics like uniquely able to do that? I mean, because it seems like they are.
Absolutely.
More than, you know, I mean, film has got its own special thing, you know, but comics, there's like just a certain graphic power it has, and I have a hard time describing it. So
I think with film and TV, you have a static ratio.
Yeah.
You know, you can zoom in and you can zoom out, but you're always dealing with the same letterbox. With comics, you can zoom in and you can zoom out, and that can really change the emotional impact or the weight of a moment. You know, if you zoom right out, it gives you context as much as, you know, whatever it is that's happening in the center of it, rather than zoom right in. That can have its weight. But if you turn a panel vertical as opposed to horizontal, that in itself can really sort of stimulate the
somebody
senses.
falling, or would you yeah.
One of my favorite quotes, I believe it's Art Spiegelman, writer and artist of Mouse and many other things. I went to a lecture of this once, and he said the beauty of comics is that they capture the way that we use our brains more than any other medium out there. You know, we don't think in books, and we don't remember in movies.
It's kind of like it's a really participatory visual medium, which is kind of unusual. Or you're reading it and you're interpreting it, but you're looking at it at the same time.
Yeah.
You're being fed images, but you're internalizing them maybe in different ways.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you read a book. You know, it stimulates your imagination while being fed a certain amount of information and, you know, emotional weight.
Right.
But you're still involving yourself.
Yeah.
And comics kind of do that as well.
One of the things that I really like about comics is that, you know, you read the story, and with the art, you can look at a background, and if there's a lot of time to draw the background, you can tell a story in the background that is totally separate from the other story. It's just maybe somebody sitting in the background, slumped over, and
it's a subtext.
And that's something that books have a hard time capturing.
Yeah.
Books in some ways have to be a little bit more literal
in
the narrative than comics are. All right, I'm gonna switch gears just a little bit. I'm gonna ask the table, what do you think you're really good at, and what do you think you're really bad at as an artist?
Ooh. Nothing. Well, that's the good part. You first.
Yeah.
Go for it.
What do you think you're best at? I mean, what about drawing comics in general do you think you're best at?
I really love creating creatures, monsters, villains, things that you look at and you can smell. Like, you shouldn't be able to smell, but you can smell.
You like your art to smell.
Yeah.
You're good at making your art smell.
It's something I enjoy doing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if, if I'm successful at it.
If you enjoy it, you're probably good at it. I mean,
it would lean one to believe that.
Right. What about you?
I think certainly something that I'm really conscious of doing as much as possible, and it feels like it's a bit of a responsibility being a girl in superhero comics, is giving all of my characters, it helps that I've been on team books the whole time, giving all of my characters, but particularly my female characters, as much physical diversity as possible. You know, not having the same body type for every character. You know, I don't want my teenagers to be mini versions of my adults.
Yeah,
I want my teenagers to look like teenagers.
That was one of my favorite things when I did the Star Sapphire planet.
Right.
With all the sapphires. It was like, no, these women are not going to be one type.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah, it's
Barbie
not going to be a bunch of
Yeah.
people with different hairstyles,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And a couple of them might be octopi.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What about you, Lee? What are you really good at?
Wow, that's kind of rigged. What?
You have to understand that we usually beat ourselves up so
Right.
much that we don't think about what we're really good at. So this is kind of putting everybody on the spot.
I find that kind of, there's kind of like a roller coaster effect with that, where I will think that I'm starting to get good at something, and then I'll start to focus on what I'm bad at, and I'll realize I really wasn't good at what I thought I was good at when I kind of come back to it. It's just kind of part of that evolutionary process of, you know, hopefully improving over time. But I really like atmosphere. I think that's something that I enjoy in anything, in literature, in film and TV. I like the fact that you know, comics are a very expressive medium in that sense, in that I think it was said earlier that they're very interactive with the reader. You know, you bring your own baggage, you bring your own, you bring a lot of yourself into everything that you read, right? So, you know, the same really goes for atmosphere, and I think that if you can create a certain mood, it's interesting what people bring to what you've given them, and sometimes it's, you know, similar to what you intended, and sometimes it's not. So I think that's something that I can do occasionally pretty well. But I do draw the worst women in comics. So that I would say
challenge that.
That I would say is my biggest weakness by far.
All right, what do you guys stick at?
I would challenge his worst women playing. Kids are always hard.
Yeah, they always look like scary.
I'm bad at drawing cars and creating monsters. I've had to do it a couple of times, but
You can tell this is an uncomfortable subject. I hate drawing trees. I'm not a big fan of drawing trees.
Really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Because I mean I tend to be very architectural. I don't like
You're so
things that
weird.
are actual geometric shapes.
That's awesome.
And trees are just chaos to me. So it's hard for me to draw trees. Really. So I try to abstract them as much as I can.
Think of them as pointy clouds.
I'm gonna try that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try that.
I'm gonna draw a tree
clouds
now.
either. So maybe I should think of them as soft trees. Are there any questions from the audience? I want to. Yeah, in the back.
Do you prefer drawing pages and panels or the static image of the cover?
man, I hate drawing pinups and covers when I don't have a script in front of me. Sorry, when I don't have a script in front of me, I sit there going, I don't know what I want to draw. I just don't know. Because I didn't grow up with the comic thing, you know, I used to draw superheroes, but I would just sort of draw their faces and I'd draw their bodies, and they wouldn't be doing that much. But as soon as I have a script in front of me and I've got like a narrative and I've got context and I've got direction and pace and all that kind of stuff,
When you're sitting on the side of a bed, breaking up. Like,
you know, it's sort of, I find I don't do covers very often, and part of it is because the approval process, it's not tough, but it's just a little
It can be.
longer.
It can be.
It can wear you
Like,
down sometimes.
especially, my biggest problem with covers is that oftentimes you're doing covers for stories that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
and or you're doing them with characters that are brand new, like, raw, we have this new character, and it doesn't even have a name. And you're trying to represent this character as like the coolest, baddest, sweetest looking thing that you're gonna buy and I'm gonna want to buy, and like it's gonna be great. So you have to breathe life into these characters on a cover and not know what kind of life they're gonna live. So I think especially with comic book storytelling, there's a definite feeling of at least with the way that I look at telling a story visually. You want to be genuine when you do panels. You want to be genuine with the reader. Sell the moment at the level that it's supposed to be at. You don't want to go have a character go into a bank that's just the character's just going to go to the bank and make a deposit. They're not robbing the place, right? So you're not going to do like these crazy perspectives of like, here is my money. You want right, yeah. But I will sign my slip. You want to sell the moment in the weight of the moment, and so with the covers, it can feel disingenuous to the reader when you don't know what you're selling. You don't know what you're putting out there.
You're trying to tell a story in a single image.
Yeah.
You're still storytelling.
Sorry, I feel like I'm
telling
the
a story in a
loudest one here.
single image, and it's really difficult.
Yeah.
I think. So what do you think, Leo? Are you on the sequential side or are you on the cover side? What do you think?
I think I tend to veer towards sequentials just because I enjoy the storytelling process, and I think that that's just kind of why I wanted to do this was to tell stories. But then I started doing a lot of cover work actually at a certain point, just simply because I'm so slow. I mean, I think that if you produce work at a certain speed, companies, at least in my experience, tend to say, well, would you like to get some covers, because they know that they can then get that out of you on time, essentially. And so it became kind of a challenge for me at first, because I thought I would really dislike doing covers. I wanted to be doing pages, but I really discovered that kind of interesting storytelling quality that covers can have too. And like you look at work like Norman Rockwell and illustrators who really do kind of tell stories in really powerful, interesting images. And so, now I would say it's a day-by-day thing. There are days when I really love to do a cover, and there's other days when I'm, happy to be doing sequential pages.
Yeah, depending on how invested you are in that particular image. Also dictates how long it takes you. How many nacho breaks you take.
I'm gonna like sort of back up a little bit and kind of expand on something Aaron was talking about a second ago. I want to ask you guys this: do you ever find yourself getting emotionally caught up in what you're drawing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally.
In crazy ways.
Yeah.
And my wife should answer this question actually. Yeah, because I think it was when I was working on the Joker. The material was so dark, and it was kind of like this tunnel that I was in for 2 years working on the book. And at a certain point, I realized it really started to control my mood in like a really weird way. And I started to think that I had like every disease or sickness known to man, and like I got really weird for a period of time. And I didn't know it. I didn't put two and two together. It wasn't like, oh, the material is kind of like getting to my head. But I find that definitely happens.
Absolutely, yeah. I used to draw a zombie book, and I would have the craziest dreams. But we won't go into detail because my crazy dreams are crazy. My normal dreams are crazy enough.
All mine are super normal.
Dreams are super.
My dreams are like super boring and normal. Yeah. I don't have crazy, interesting. I wish I did.
I don't remember my dreams.
I stand with you.
Right. I find that I'm pulling the face of whatever it is that I'm drawing. So if I'm drawing a sad scene,
Oh.
I'll look really sad. My husband will come out and say,
Yeah.
"What's wrong?"
I think almost every artist does comics does that.
Yeah.
They-
I also do that when I play video games.
Yeah.
That's really funny to watch.
But I mean, even beyond just sort of it affecting you emotionally in a negative sense, do you ever find yourself? I mean, have you ever drawn a page that had you crying tears of joy, or or feeling like something made you really happy that
Yeah.
the characters were
Yeah.
going through?
Yeah, there's definitely been some scenes like,
I mean, look
but
at it
it's
like-
weird, and I don't know what this
It's
is
just
about, but
It's just not that emotional.
Yeah.
no, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I find it's tied in a lot to how well I think I'm drawing at the
Oh
moment.
yeah, sure.
So like, it could be a happy scene, it could even be a sad scene, but if I feel like I've really nailed something, then
Well,
I'm
that's
gonna
the
get into it.
satisfaction.
Yeah, I guess it's two different things.
Yeah. I'm not terribly emotional when I draw, but I find like I use my emotions. They're like tools in a way, but I don't necessarily feel that. I'm not feeling sad if I'm drawing a sad comic or something like that. But I find out that I access sadness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly that.
I think maybe I'm similar. I don't feel like it directly influences me in a kind of page by page
Right.
basis. It's more like while I was doing Rorschach, at a certain point, it was like it was a long.
You were doing your other crazy person comic.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the Joker or
Yeah. I should pick some other material. Maybe that's my problem. But it was super long, cold, rainy winter, and I was walking around the street at one night, and I was like, I had just finished drawing this page with like a rat that was fighting like a stray dog, and I was walking around the street, and I kept seeing these puddles, but it eventually was just a paper bag on it. But I was like, it's a dead rat. It's a dead rat. I was seeing all this kind of, and I was like, wow, I need to get out of the studio more.
I'm
Is
kind
anybody-
of glad
Oh.
that I have weird dreams then. I mean, just glad that I do get emotional about my work. When, anybody read Action?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. When the man saying goodbye to Baca, oh my God. I had 3 dogs. It was so hard. But yeah, no, I don't go crazy in the extra. I definitely have some wild dreams, and I hope I don't hit my wife from seriously, it's a fear of mine. I sleepwalked a couple weeks ago into the kitchen and ate this giant tub of leftover curry. And I woke up with 2 scoops left.
So was it curry in the dream, or was it something else?
I don't remember the dream. Yeah. But it was good.
All right. So are there any questions out there? Yeah, you. Sorry.
Hi guys, can you give us some insight on the collaboration with the colorists that you're working with?
Interesting. Okay.
Colorists deserve a lot more respect in this industry than we do.
Yeah.
Agreed.
A good colorist can make, break anything, everything in the book. I'm really blessed to be working with Will Quintana, who is a fabulous collaborator beyond just being a great talent. I'm really picky. I'm a jerk when it comes to edits and stuff like that. He sends in stuff, and I edit everything, every page. I swear he secretly hates me, but he's so nice, and he does it all. And he goes out of his way to make Action in my opinion, one of the best looking books. Not just without me on it, because there's been plenty of people helping out on it. A good colorist is just a godsend.
It's really hard to not be too controlling.
I don't worry about it.
Yeah, I used to be just sort of overly notey, and then I just thought, look, I want to not be a pain in the ass, and I want to be able to trust that they've got the job because they know what they're doing. But I will send notes when it's sort of like something really specific, like time of day, particularly on a book like Earth 2, where, you know, we will jump from sides of the planet scene to scene. And it's like, okay, if it's this time of day here, then it obviously has to be this time of day on the other side. And otherwise, I just sort of, it's for me, particularly on a monthly book, as things have to churn out, you know, it's like it's a production line. You've got to keep going. If you get too precious, you can really sort of demoralize yourself. You can get really down about how things are going. You just have to, you know, it's part of, for me, I see it as part of the job. It's like, you know, it's Chinese whispers. The writer has an intention. It's up to me to interpret that intention. It's then up to the inker to interpret my line work. It's then up to the colorist to find the bits and pieces of information in that black and white and elevate it. And at each stage, it can either get better or it can get worse than how it was before.
I love drawing blizzard scenes.
I hate drawing blizzard scenes.
I just leave it up to
wanted the
Will.
idea of one because I thought I just want to draw everything in the snow, and then I did that, and I was like, oh, there's snow everywhere.
No, you don't have to draw feet. Everything's in mittens. All hands are in mittens.
Let me
No,
ask.
totally. You have to cheat. That's what this job is. You cheat your way to the end of the book.
And let me ask you guys a question. Do you think in black and white or do you think in color?
Thinking color.
Yeah.
I think it's about in black and white.
Yeah.
It varies. It goes back and forth.
I want to do a black and white book.
Really?
I want to do a black and white book so I can think in blocks of black and white.
Interesting.
Because I always think in color, and I think in like really vivid, like after the movie's been graded and the special effects have been done in color. And it's like,
So
just
that, I
knock
mean,
it
that's
off,
why
it's fun.
you render the way you do, because you tend to use a little more line work than,
Oh, yeah.
than somebody like me, for example.
Yeah.
I tend to be a lot more
It's
black, large areas of black and stuff like that.
yeah, particularly on a book like Earth 2, you know, when I got that one,
Yeah.
it was, I had asked for something sort of really butch and testosterone-y, because I hadn't, you know, everything I've drawn up until then had been sort of kids or girls or fringe. It was all sort of either love power or it was side stuff. It wasn't really bombastic, masculine stuff. And I was campaigning for something like that, partly because I wanted to see if DC would give me a job like that, give me a gig like that, and partly because I wanted to see if I could do it. And once I got Earth 2 and I sort of realized, okay, this is the scope of it, and this is the nature of it, and this is the state of it, and all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh wow, okay, I really have to commit to the job in front of me and make it really gritty, and it's not so much dirty, because I make everyone look sort of pretty shiny and polished, because that's my preference. But there's a lot more rendering than I would usually find myself doing in that book, just for
Do the three of you find that the styles that you've developed, that you're known for, are informed in any way by what you can't do well?
Yeah, that's the cheating
Like
part.
you sort of, that you're covering for what you can't do well, so it's, like I personally,